You can now find me on RoadStr, the app connecting people through cars.
Hello everybody, today on the channel I am asking, why should you buy a Skoda Citigo? The VW empire, I would say, on the whole, does a pretty good job of managing the relationship between its various brands, from Seat, Skoda, up to then, of course, VW, Audi, and then the other stuff like Porsche, Bentley, and Lamborghini. However, from time to time, you do get models which sometimes wind up being a little too close to one another for corporate comfort, and I think that's exactly what happened with the Citygo, and the reason it's now discontinued. There were, in fact, 3 cars based on this platform: the Skoda Citigo, then the Seat Mii, and the one you've probably heard of, the Volkswagen Up. Often when it comes to comparing different models between the brands, people tend to say, oh, well, that's just a Golf with different bumpers. But in the case of the Citygo, it really is just an Up with slightly different bumpers. There isn't really much mechanically separating this from the VW. In fact, even the interior isn't very different from the Up. What was, though, was the price, with the Skoda, surprisingly, being the cheapest of them all. I thought that honour would have gone to the Seat, but it did not. This car was bought by its current owner, Michael, new back in 2016. And for this almost fully loaded, top-of-the-line SEL trim model, he paid £12,500, and today it'd probably still be worth about 7 and a bit. Granted, some of that may be a result of the very unusual circumstances the car market finds itself in, but even still it shows that you can own some of these cheaper cars and not lose a whole heap in depreciation, often really the biggest single cost of all. Before we get on to the nitty-gritty, let's talk about the components that make up the Citygo. As you can see, it is a relatively small car with 5 doors and, let's be honest here, 4 seats. There is just about enough room for me to sit behind myself, only thanks to the fact that these seats actually have a rather nice sculpted section giving you some space for your knees. I'd be lying if I said I want to spend a long time in the back of this car, but for a sort of quick half-hour trip down to the pub or to see family, it's more than adequate. It's in these scenarios, actually, where cars like this do really create a problem. I'm now following a cyclist who's doing 15 mile an hour in a very fast and entertaining 60 mile an hour limit stretch. In a sportier car with shorter sections, you know you can get past a cyclist fairly safely and easily. Though many people talk about a very us and them situation with regards to car owners or car enthusiasts and cyclists, actually I find, particularly around here, the crossover is much more than you would ever imagine. And here's the problem: I don't want to get past this person, and I want to do it safely, and I can't. And now I've probably just really upset them because I've revved my engine up, but it didn't actually go anywhere. If I was in most other cars, a Golf GTI or something like that, I could have got past them nicely and safely. I hate it when you see people scraping past a cyclist on an unsighted bend where, if they were following a tractor, they never would have even tried it. But because it's a cyclist, they think it's fine. They think there's loads of room. And there's not. It might surprise you all to know that I do really, really care about and respect cyclists, but they are also fellow road users, and I try and operate a live and let live policy. There we go. Sounds very dramatic getting past them, but I promise you it was not. If you give them plenty of room, you generally have better visibility yourself to confirm that your overtake you're making is actually one that's going to be safe and sensible. So back to the car. 5 doors, 4 seats, and a reasonably sized boot. It's enough for the weekly shop or very small camping trip, I suppose, but you're not going to get masses and masses in it. As it happens, this car sits in a family of Skodas because its owner also has the Octavia VRS that you may have seen on the channel recently. This was purchased for his wife and as a replacement for an old Mark I Octavia VRS that he had. To replace the Octavia, they decided they wanted something that was both smaller, so it could be used in all scenarios, and automatic. Not all manufacturers offer cars in this segment with an auto box. As it happens, the gearbox is one of the bits of this car that I don't like, because it isn't a traditional torque converter automatic that would be absolutely perfect for a city car. It is instead essentially an R-tronic gearbox. It's a semi-automated robotized manual. That means it's not the smoothest. That's also why you can hear it sort of dipping the clutch and doing strange things, because it is. It's a 5-speed unit, and around town it's okay. It's not as bad as some sports cars are in auto mode, but it's never particularly smooth. You find it lurching through the shifts. First to second is particularly unpleasant if you're not ready for it. You can shift gears yourself by flicking the lever over into manual, and then you can pull towards you for down and push away for up. The wrong way around, but in a car like this, I kind of forgive them. In fairness, this really is the better way to drive the car, because as with many a sporty car equipped with this kind of gearbox, if you just help it out a little bit, it will be a much more pleasant thing, and then it'll shift like a well-executed manual. Can't blip though on the downshift, that's a shame. You can do that in a 430 Scuderia. Skoda missed a bit of a trick there. He should have let you do that. The engine is a 3-cylinder, 1-litre naturally aspirated, and was available in 2 guises, with 60 horsepower, or as here, 75. Oh yes. Engine availability is actually one of the few things that separated the Citygo and the Mii from the Up, because with the Up you had a selection of turbocharged engines, including the Up GTI, which still didn't have that much power, just over 100 horses. In truth though, for this kind of car, this sort of engine I think suits it really quite well. It means that, in theory, when you're on a little country road, you can really have fun, thrash heck out of it, but even so it will still return decent fuel economy. To give you an idea of just how good this car is, on the way up here it achieved 58 to the gallon on the motorway, and even driving around the country lanes it achieves over 40 as an average. That's good. This is the SEL model, although this being a Citygo, please don't expect all that much in the way of luxuries. So you do have air conditioning, you do have heated seats, you've got a leather steering wheel, you've also got rather nice looking gear lever, although it has no leather base or anything, it's just a stick in the middle of the dash. You've also got this red interior trim here, which I actually kind of like. Yes, it is just the door painted, but it brings a little bit of life to the cabin. It's a shame this car doesn't have a sunroof, because what it does have at the back is not lecky windows nor windy windows. It has the even more desperately cool, because it's kind of basic, pop-out windows. And I really like those, because you get a pop-out window at the back and just roll this down a little bit, and I've actually got really nice airflow through the car. For a day like today, it's a wonderful way to drive and experience your car. This even has parking sensors, and here on the dash you've got a really nifty little Garmin unit that is more than just a sat-nav. It also has a trip computer, DAB radio, although some of that is accessed through the regular panel down here. All of your AC controls are very basic, very old-fashioned, and I have no trouble with that whatsoever. This does not have climate control, and quite honestly I think climate control is a bit of a swizz, because let's be honest here, if it's a hot day you want to get in a cold car, if it's a cold day you want to get in a hot car. I don't know about your cars, but every single one I've ever owned with climate control, if you set it to about 20, which is what I normally do, the car doesn't seem to know whether it wants to blow an Arctic wind or fire out the devil's own burps. It's really quite frustrating. Anyway, now we're on a lovely nice bit of B road. Let's see what this car and its tiny rev counter, it's adorable, it's that big. Let's see what she can do. Brace yourselves. Oh. I have just remembered that I didn't actually put an exhaust mic on this car, because it seemed a little bit unnecessary. So I may as well talk to you about what this car's like. It's not, this may surprise you to hear, particularly potent, but what it is actually really good fun. I drove the Up GTI a while ago and I don't seem to recall enjoying it all that much. This I am. Maybe I've just mellowed in that time. Maybe the day is a little bit better. Who can say? This car is riding on Falcon mid-range tyres, which for this kind of thing are absolutely perfect. Those are, in fact, about the only consumable this car has really required beyond your regular oil and filter changes. Speaking of which, those are very reasonable at around £120 for a small service and £200 for a big one. Tax is also cheap because this car is a slightly older one. It still fits into the £20 a year bracket. And insurance, as you might hope, is also pretty decent. This car, on account of being the auto with some extra trim, is in insurance group 2. If you're unfamiliar with our insurance system here in the UK, to be honest with you, I don't really understand it. That's insurance group 2 out of, I think, 50. So for Michael and his family, including their 20-year-old daughter, this car is less than £800 a year to insure. Even when she was 17, it was only about £1,600 a year, and that was without the rather annoying black box. Though the pace of the thing is not really a surprise, the ride quality is, because it's actually pretty decent. This is a reasonably demanding section of road, and still, the car's actually doing a good job. By not even attempting to make it all that sporty, they've probably made it better and that much more chuckable, because you can thrash the life out of it. It'll move around a bit under you, and yet you're still not really going that fast. Steering is actually a bit better than I expected too. It's not bristling with feel and feedback, but the weighting is a little more reassuring than I expected. Here we go. This is what I mean about the auto box. So, yep. It's just not very sophisticated. That's not me putting that on. When you're driving gentler, it is a little bit better, but it's never great. The brakes are pretty good. Discs at the front, drums at the back, which is actually the same setup you get in the Up GTI. I'm not sure if they're the same brakes. They probably aren't, but they work well enough. Drawbacks then? Well, yes, there are a few. Despite this being the top-of-the-line SEL trim, not everything was actually standard. So, items like DAB radio with extra 4 speakers, that was an option pack. I believe your parking sensors and things, that was an option pack. The black alloy wheels, they were an extra as well. Just a few little things in this car didn't come in the price. For me, you've only got really 2 types of customer for this kind of car. You're really young and old who generally just want something cheap. For whatever reason, these are people that probably would be better off with something used, but have decided they want something new, and they just want the car for as little as they can possibly get away with. These are the people that are only buying the Skoda, not because they like the badge or anything like that, but because it's cheaper. And so for them, you want the Bobby Basic, no frills, workout window, basic car with nothing in it. Give them a heater, don't give them AC, give them a basic AM FM radio, maybe a CD player if you're feeling flash. That's it. Then the rest of your customers are always going to be made up of people that have money and they want a nice car, they just want a small car. So for them, just give them everything. This is the way that Kia do it, and are rather like that. So the Picanto I've got at the minute, that's the GT Line S, which gives you everything. There really aren't any options to choose at all. So for me to have had all those options on a car like this, even at 90 odd pounds a go, that sort of stuff, it's just daft. The only thing that really should have been optional is the auto box, and that wasn't particularly expensive. Incidentally, the auto box is a reasonably rare option, and one reason this car has held so much of its value. If you are happy to buy a manual, the cheapest SEL that I could find up for sale this morning was about £5,000, which, if you then consider that this car is now about 6 years old, and in that time it's lost about 6,000 quid, that's pretty good. Michael actually wanted to buy this car for cash. However, the dealer talked him into taking the finance, not because it was going to do them any favours, although I'm sure in some way it did, but because it was 0% interest, and they chucked in 2 years free servicing. So why would you not? Another thing this car got spec'd with was the dynamic interior pack. Rather fancy terminology for rather basic stuff. The main difference is the nicer diamond stitching on the seats. That's about it. The seats are quite nice. I've got no real issue with them. They feel a little bit narrow in the base, and over really long journeys, I'm not sure I want to commit to how nice they are, but on the journey I've done today, they've been pretty decent. I am the first to acknowledge that I probably did the whole car thing a bit the wrong way round. I never really wanted a hatchback. In fact, I never owned a hatchback until I was about 27, 28, until I'd already started the channel. My first car was a Peugeot Estate, my second car was a BMW Saloon, and my third car was a BMW 6 Series. So by the time I was on my third car, I was already driving something absolutely enormous about. At the time, it made a lot of sense. I really liked it, and it did genuinely work for me. Something like this simply wouldn't have. I needed space in the boot to carry all my kit. But unless you happen to be a budding, car-obsessed 20-something-year-old cinematographer, the Skoda Citigo has a lot to recommend it. More than that, but this really is the kind of car that I think could appeal to the whole family. It's small, not intimidating to drive, easy to park, which means that the youngest in the family, even while they're learning, should have no trouble whatsoever driving it. The £20 a year road tax, low insurance cost, and very decent fuel economy also mean that it's not going to break the bank. If mum or dad want to borrow it and take it shopping at the weekend, there's plenty of space to do all of that. You can fill it to the brim with wine, no problem whatsoever. Michael also loves taking this to the football because it's a small car that can fit 4 people and you can park it virtually anywhere. Though visibility isn't perfect, chiefly thanks to this B-pillar being in a rather awkward place, having 5 doors means it's pretty easy for people to get in and out of. If you happen to have young families, 5 doors I know is something people always look for, although I'm pretty sure most people with a baby will need a bit more room than this car offers them. Genuinely, the only thing I really don't like about this car is the gearbox. It's fairly unpleasant. Beyond that though, it's a really, really good package. I'd love to have another go in an up GTI at some point to see if maybe I was a little harsh on that car, but this one I instantly gelled with. I started this video with a question: why should you buy a Skoda Citigo? And I'm going to end it with another: why shouldn't you? Most people seem to think that they need more in a car than they really do, and trust me, there's absolutely nothing at all wrong with wanting more. I mean, that's the nature of human beings, but if we're being honest with ourselves, for the vast majority of uses, this is probably all the car most of us need. In fact, I would say this is exactly the sort of thing that would really appeal to somebody who already has something nice for the weekend. 911, an R8, V8 Vantage, that sort of thing. Because not only will you enjoy driving this, but spending less time in the special car only ever serves to make those feel even more special. That's a win-win to me. Anyway, big thank you to Michael for bringing his car out. Thanks to you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, comment down below, and subscribe if you haven't already. Bye-bye.